In this podcast episode, Andrew Bustamante discusses various economic and geopolitical theories, focusing on the potential for conflict and power shifts in the near future. He highlights the work of economist Ray Dalio, who has identified a predictable cycle that empires go through, culminating in total collapse and war. According to Dalio, the United States is nearing the end of this cycle, with Phase 6 being total collapse and war. Bustamante explains that the cycle is driven by factors such as internal division, excessive debt, and the rise of a new superpower. He suggests that the U.S. was able to overcome its differences and become a dominant power after World War II due to a combination of factors, including geographical advantages and economic prosperity. However, he warns that the U.S. is now facing challenges that could lead to a new world order being established. The conversation then shifts to the potential for conflict, with Bustamante predicting that China may make a legal move on Taiwan, similar to what happened in Hong Kong. Bustamante explains that China's economic interests are significant, especially in areas like chip manufacturing, where Taiwan holds a dominant position. He anticipates that China's move on Taiwan could lead to a period of conflict, with the peak expected around 2024-2025. Bustamante also discusses the role of intelligence agencies, highlighting the capabilities of the French intelligence service, DGSE. He explains that France has invested heavily in intelligence operations, particularly targeting the U.S., following a history of espionage incidents. The conversation then shifts to the long-standing conflict between Israel and Palestine. The conflict escalated after World War II when the Jewish diaspora, having faced persecution during the Holocaust, sought to establish a homeland in the region of Judea, which holds significant religious and cultural importance for the Jewish people. The establishment of Israel as a nation-state led to tensions with the Palestinian population, who also lay claim to the land. The West played a role in supporting the economic development of Israel, while the Palestinians faced challenges in establishing a stable economy and political structure due to their lack of recognition as a nation-state. The emergence of groups like Hamas, with a dual role as a political entity and a militant organization, further complicated the situation. The podcast explores the challenges of finding a resolution to the current conflict, with differing perspectives on the right to the land, the historical grievances, and the aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians. Bustamante highlights the need to address the root causes of the conflict and move away from unrealistic solutions such as asking one side to concede to the other's beliefs or territory. He points out that historical attempts, like the Jews pulling out of the West Bank and Gaza Strip in 2005, have not led to a resolution. Therefore, it is crucial to identify why a two-state solution has not been successful in the past. Bustamante highlights the importance of understanding the ideological and cultural factors at play in conflicts, drawing parallels with the conflict in Cyprus between Greeks and Turks. Despite similar historical grievances, Cyprus has managed to achieve stability without the ongoing bloodshed seen in the Israel-Palestine conflict, raising questions about the potential for resolution through different approaches. Bustamante explains the process of radicalization, which begins with validating an injustice and creating an enemy responsible for that injustice. He emphasizes the need to address the underlying grievances of the Palestinian people to prevent further radicalization and violence. Bustamante stresses the importance of approaching the conflict through a practical lens. He acknowledges his bias towards supporting Israel due to its strategic importance to the United States. However, he also recognizes the injustices faced by the Palestinian people and the need to address their plight. The discussion emphasizes the need for a shift in perspective and a focus on creating a sense of hope and optimism for both Israelis and Palestinians. The Abraham Accords, which fostered economic cooperation and diplomatic relations between Israel and Arab countries, offer a glimmer of hope for a more peaceful future in the region. The concept of providing off-ramps for both sides, allowing them to save face and claim victory, is discussed as a strategy to de-escalate the conflict. By offering tangible wins and economic incentives, it becomes possible to shift the focus towards cooperation and mutual benefit. Bustamante highlights how many European countries have become dependent on the United States for technology, trade, and financial stability. This dependence has led to a situation where the U.S. is perceived as engaging in economic bullying. He emphasizes the need for the U.S. to adopt a different approach that goes beyond economic dominance. The conversation delves into the potential for conflict on a global scale, particularly the risk of a World War III scenario. Bustamante outlines the different approaches to conflict taken by various countries, highlighting the complexity of modern warfare and the role of economic warfare in shaping international relations. He cautions against catastrophizing, which involves envisioning the most catastrophic outcomes without considering probabilities. He explains that while there are tenuous moments in global affairs, the likelihood of a full-scale world war breaking out is lower due to factors such as deterrence and differing approaches to conflict among nations. The conversation then shifts to the topic of foreign interference in elections. Bustamante challenges the notion that foreign interference in elections is a recent phenomenon, pointing out that such activities have likely been ongoing for years. He emphasizes the need to recognize the role of foreign powers in shaping political outcomes and influencing decision-making processes. The podcast touches on the shifting dynamics of global power, with the United States facing challenges from rising superpowers like China. Bustamante discusses the potential implications of countries like the BRICS nations moving towards creating their own currency and reducing reliance on the U.S. dollar, signaling a decline in U.S. economic hegemony. Bustamante highlights the foundation of global stability, which has historically been the United States. He emphasizes that the transition of power and influence is shifting, and the United States needs to adapt to maintain its position as a global leader. Bustamante discusses the different types of wars, including economic, cyber, information, and proxy wars, and notes that the United States is already engaged in multiple of these types with China. He emphasizes the importance of understanding these dynamics and the potential risks they pose to global stability. He also touches on the impact of influence campaigns and the need for the United States to address internal divisions to remain strong on the global stage. The conversation shifts towards the upcoming presidential election in the United States and the potential outcomes of a Trump or Biden presidency. Bustamante acknowledges the concerns surrounding the election and the possibility of a distressingly high probability of a negative turn regardless of the outcome. He stresses the importance of having a plan in place for either scenario and highlights the need for civic engagement and responsibility in shaping the future of the country. Bustamante challenges the notion of labeling Trump as an existential threat, emphasizing that true existential threats pose a risk to the very existence of a nation or group. He cautions against catastrophizing and the tendency to exaggerate threats, noting that Trump's presidency, while potentially damaging, does not constitute an existential threat to the United States. Bustamante encourages a more nuanced and measured approach to assessing risks and challenges in the current political climate. Bustamante shares his thoughts on potential presidential candidates, highlighting Nikki Haley as a candidate he believes could bring a level-headed and centrist approach to leadership. He discusses the importance of diversity and strong leadership in navigating the challenges facing the country. He also touches on the need for presidential candidates to exhibit presidential behavior and avoid unnecessary conflicts or distractions that detract from their leadership qualities.